If you've ever taken a class about journalism, at a certain point, you've undoubtedly been asked to go write a news story. Whether that was by yourself or in a group, you probably immediately thought, so what am I supposed to write about? As a journalist, sometimes you may be assigned a job, but if you want to get anywhere in this field, you're going to have to learn how to find and tell compelling stories. Today, I'm going to help you create ideas and evaluate if those stories are newsworthy. Because I teach broadcasting, this might skew a little towards journalism as it pertains to video, but this can also be applied to yearbook, newspaper, convergence journalism, any field where you want to capture someone's attention and then inform them about something that matters. Although this conversation might feel like I'm talking about traditional or legacy media, I can undoubtedly assure you that creators on platforms like YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok are using this strategy every single day. When you're trying to find a story that's worth telling, it's important to think about the 7 elements of newsworthiness. Those elements are timeliness, proximity, conflict, impact, prominence, rarity, and human interest. The presence of any of these elements alone can help determine if a story is newsworthy, but the real power comes when you combine multiple elements. The more elements you stack together, the more important your story may be to your audience. So let's jump into these elements. Timeliness. Is something happening right now? Did it just happen? Is it happening soon? These are the questions that you want to ask yourself. Sometimes stories can be about an event that has a date on the calendar, but other times it can be more abstract. Is it a trend online? Are people talking about it at lunch or in the halls? You also want to ask yourself, how long is this going to be relevant? The amount of time people spend caring about something can be shockingly short. If there was a football game on Friday, people might still be talking about it on Monday, but almost no one is still talking about it on Thursday. The world moves quickly, and if you want to capture people's attention, you have to move quickly too, so the story you're telling is still timely. Next up, we have proximity. How close to your audience is this story? For student journalists, anything happening at your school is obviously relevant to your audience. You can often take a wider look at things happening in your town, and you can sometimes take a look at things happening in your state. The closer in proximity to your audience that your story is, the more important it's going to be to them. For example, if a swimmer at your school sets a new school record in the 100 meter, that's probably newsworthy. If a swimmer at a school 3 states away breaks their school record, we probably don't care about it. There are times, though, that stories happening far away can still be newsworthy for your school. Imagine an actress being cast in her first role on Broadway. Now, if your school is here in Oklahoma, that story might not have much proximity. But if that actress graduated from your school 2 years ago, that's going to be a great story to tell. Next, let's talk about conflict. Everybody wants the tea. People love a juicy story with conflict. Conflict at its core is when 2 or more groups or even individuals have opposing views. This can make for interesting and compelling stuff, but it can also create a pretty big problem. It's no secret that conflict sells newspapers and keeps viewers from changing the channel. But as journalists, it's important that we cover both sides of conflict evenly, neutrally, and responsibly. Sadly, that is nowhere close to what we're seeing at the national level for most journalism. The war for attention has mainstream media drumming up conflict where there is none and pinning one side against the other to the point of causing hatred. As high school journalists, that's the only world you've grown up in. And because of that, I honestly think you've been robbed. News has the power to bring people together and enact change. But too often, we're creating echo chambers where people are just being told what they want to hear instead of being challenged for us all to do better. As the next generation of journalists, I hope that you can do better and be the change this world needs. Conflict doesn't have to be a fight, and all sides can be well-intentioned, good people despite their disagreements. So, use the element of conflict responsibly. The 4th element of newsworthiness is impact. Could the story you're sharing impact your audience's daily life? Imagine your school changes a dress code policy, or the district changes what time school starts to make up for having too many snow days. These are things that will impact virtually everyone at your school. If something changes where people go, what they do, or how they feel, this is a story that has impact. Next up, we have prominence, or how important is the subject of your story. Prominence is incredibly relative. Something that happens to a student that leads the chants for your student section might be more important to your audience than the President of the United States. Now, does that make the student more important than the president? No, but it's about how prominent they are in relation to your audience. Someone getting a cold and missing school one day isn't that newsworthy. But if that student is the captain of the debate team and they have to miss state, their prominence to the team makes that story newsworthy. Prominence is the entire reason we have celebrity news. If you've never even heard of two people that are going through a breakup, you wouldn't care. But if they're celebrities that are somehow deemed important, their prominence might make that story newsworthy. The next element of newsworthiness is rarity. If it doesn't happen often, it might be a big deal. Here in Oklahoma, there was recently a big story about how the Oklahoma City Zoo just had lion cubs born there for the first time in 15 years. Because it's such a rare thing, a much bigger deal was made out of it. Think about what's happening at your school that doesn't happen every day. Celebrate accomplishments, shine light on quirky hobbies, give your audience an experience they may never otherwise have because of how rare it is. That brings us to the final element of newsworthiness, human interest. These are stories that make you feel something, make people smile, make people laugh, make people cry. Tell a story that makes your audience empathize with your subject. It can be about achieving success in the face of adversity, or about failing, but growing as a person and learning from your mistakes. When we're stuck in the mundane and routine, it can be such an incredible thing to hear a story that moves you. It can brighten someone's day, and then their light might spread to people around them in ways you can't even imagine. So that's it. Those are the 7 elements of newsworthy stories. One more time, all at once, those elements are timeliness, proximity, conflict, impact, prominence, rarity, and human interest. Use these individually to start generating ideas for stories, and then see how many elements you can combine to make your story more compelling. If you're willing to look and ask questions, everyone has a story to tell. It's up to you to go find that story. Like I always say, it doesn't matter if it's perfect, it only matters that you start.